Hey guys, so don't tell anyone, but I have a little bit of a surprise planned for everybody at work because I am making peanut butter and jelly cupcakes. I know it's a little bit weird. Maybe you've never had them. I've had dreams about them, so I feel like I've had them in my lifetime, even though it was all in my head. So I'm gonna make those dreams come true. We're gonna start with a pretty dense peanut butter cake. We're going to scoop at the top, fill in with some yummy jelly, and then squeeze a little bit of peanut butter frosting on top. Now I have a backup in case everything goes horribly sideways. You'll see what that is if we need to pull out the big guns. But until then, stay tuned because we're gonna start baking. Yay! Oh yeah, peanut butter and jelly cupcakes. So let's start with some ingredients. That's flour, that's peanut butter because peanut butter cupcakes. That is turbinado sugar because I use it instead of regular sugar in everything. Some milk, some butter, and some baking soda. And here we go with the assembly. So this is a pretty normal cake batter sort of method in that first we are combining all of the dry ingredients into a big mixing bowl. Kind of get everything all mixed up together so that when you dump in the wet ingredients, you don't have to like over mix the batter to get everything fully incorporated. You don't want any giant lumps of, you know, flour or like random clumps of sugar or baking soda for whatever reason. So we've got everything all mixed together and all the dry ingredients rather, and now we're putting in all the wet ingredients. Um, so peanut butter is really hard to work with and it's super sticky, so I totally recommend using a spatula, which I clearly did not do here, but that's okay, lesson learned. I also put in a bunch of melted butter or semi-melted butter, I suppose. I put it out on the counter to soften and kind of forgot about it for way too long, so it was super soft, but totally fine. It works anyway. And you'll see all of the ingredients and measurements and stuff in the recipe below. So we've got all of our wet ingredients. We're incorporating them into our fully mixed up dry ingredients. This is super, super easy. If you have a standing mixer, it takes like a minute, maybe, to get to this really beautiful, fully incorporated but not over mixed consistency. And then once everything is nice and smooth, you just keep on going until it's like really fully incorporated. It takes on a little bit of a glossy sort of sheen, which is how you know that everything is really truly broken down and mixed in together. All the sugar is dissolved and all of that. And then after that, what you do is you start spooning your cake batter into some very nicely prepped cupcake molds. I'm actually using paper liners for this. I know that some people like to use silicone, but paper liners are really quick and easy and they're disposable. So if I bring all this stuff to work, I'm not chasing people looking for my silicone molds back. I'm not worried about losing them and all of that stuff. Obviously, I prefer to cut down on waste when possible. So when I'm just baking for myself or for an event at home, I'll try to use silicone liners. But for work, you know, it's paper, it'll break down. So here we go. I like to use an ice cream scoop to get my batter in because, like, look how nicely it scoops out, right? It just kind of like, oh yeah, yeah, it just comes out in one lovely glob, and it's super easy to figure out exactly how much you need to put in when you're using an actual measuring type um, thing. So here we are. I am putting a bunch of chocolate chips in the leftover batter because I did like a dozen of the straight peanut butter and figured that there may be some people in the world who for some reason don't like peanut butter and jelly. So I dumped in a bunch of chocolate chips, did not measure it by the way, I'm assuming about a cup. And I spooned that straight into some also wonderfully prepared muffin cups. So It's really beautiful. I love the consistency of this batter and it tastes amazing. Not that you should be eating raw cake batter, but I totally did because it was delicious. Um, it's super, super good. It's not nearly as heavy as you think it is, but here we are. We're baking it, and I totally checked on it a couple times. Here they are. They are done, and you'll know that they're done when you stick a toothpick in the middle of one and it comes out clean with maybe one or two crumbs clinging to the toothpick, but nothing more. So, yeah, you take these out and you cool them on a rack for a little while, and you hope for the best. It turns out that this cake was actually a lot denser than I thought it would be, and a lot denser than what the batter made me believe. But I think it's honestly just because, like, it's peanut butter. Peanut butter makes everything dry and thick and kind of crumbly and, like, not as moist, which is totally fine because you expect that, I guess, with peanut butter. Like, have you ever had, like, a super moist, chewy peanut butter cookie? I haven't had one of those in a really long time, and I don't know what kind of magic was used to make those, but I'd love to figure that out. Anyway, so here we are. We are making the peanut butter frosting. Um, so copious amounts of peanut butter is used in this recipe from top to bottom. So I start with a relatively small amount of peanut butter because I wasn't really sure how much frosting I needed. But as I started going, and so what you do is you put the peanut butter in and you kind of like get it going for a second so that it sort of loosens up and becomes more receptive to absorbing some sugar. So then, you know, sugar, you put it in, you mix it, you add more peanut butter and more sugar as needed. Add a few splashes of milk as you go along to sort of loosen things up, help everything incorporate really nicely. And if you go a little overboard with milk, the way I sometimes do, then you can add more peanut butter or sugar or both, depending on what your preferences are. So as you can see here, I totally ended up making like twice as much frosting as I thought I was going to because I totally messed up on the milk and made it way, way, way too thin. But I have to say that this actually turned out really, really well. It turned out that I added a lot more peanut butter and I added a lot more sugar, but that gave me a really wonderful kind of thick consistency. Not so thick that it was overly stiff, and you'll see that when I start piping, but definitely thicker. And it actually helped a lot because it made it easier to sort of like control where I was putting the frosting on the cupcakes, which is super important. Okay, and now moving on to the filling part of the process. So, in order for these to be truly peanut butter and jelly, I really needed to find a way to strongly incorporate jelly into this recipe. And I knew from previous extreme disasters in the kitchen that mixing jelly into peanut butter cake batter is kind of just going to turn into a weird, sugary, burned up mess. So instead, I waited for my peanut butter cupcakes to cool, and I used a spoon to hollow out just a little, I would say probably about a teaspoon and a half worth of cupcake from the top. And then I just filled in with my favorite no sugar added organic grape jelly. No brands, but you know, I shop at Trader Joe's, so go from there. And so there you go. You just kind of dump it in. You try to keep it like level with the rest of the cupcake. Don't let it ooze out because as the jelly gets warm at any point, it'll start to melt and like run down the side of the cupcake, which is super gross. Um, so when you're done with the frosting and you've filled all of your cupcakes, dump your frosting into a pastry bag, fit it with a star tip or a round tip or whatever tip you want, whatever suits the consistency of peanut butter frosting that you made, and just fill in the little hole. I actually wanted to cover up the jelly completely so that there was no chance of me like jostling the box and spilling jelly all over the place. And also, I think that the cupcakes look a lot neater um, when it's just like cupcake and frosting. It seems like a more cohesive sort of look rather than looking at like a big glob of weird moist stuff in the middle of a cupcake. I find it very unappealing. So anyway, I frosted all the cupcakes and let them sit for a minute just to let everything sort of come together. And then here we are.
Yay, cupcakes! Peanut butter and jelly cupcakes were super successful. Erin and I had one, we loved it, so hopefully everyone at work will too. And you guys, if you try the recipe and you love it, please let me know in the comments. And if you don't for whatever reason, also let me know so we can figure out where we went wrong. As always, stay tuned for more adventures, recipes, and other super fun stuff right here on Food Drama. Yay!